for having founded the Robert F. Kennedy Memorial Center for Human Rights, and thereby contributed to guaranteeing the protection of rights sanctioned by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, providing a real basis for supporting the defense of human rights all over the world. For her work on human rights-related issues such as the rights of children, child labor, disappearances, indigenous land rights, judicial independence, freedom of expression, ethnic violence, immunity, corporate social responsibility, the environment, and health. For having particularly concentrated on women's rights, highlighting injustices, and educating the public on women's issues such as honor killings, sexual slavery, domestic violence, workplace discrimination, sexual assault, and detainee abuse. For her many decades of commitment to the attainment of social justice, the promotion and protection of universal justice, and the safeguarding of the rule of law. It's an honor to present to you Kerry Kennedy.
Grazie. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today, and I really thank you, Antonio, for your work and for your commitment. And Gianmarco and Letizia, where are you? There you are. You're such an inspiration. I mean, here and around the world, and we're so honored to be in your presence. So thank you. Thank you. Sometimes people ask me how I became involved in human rights, and I have 7 brothers and 3 sisters, and that gives you an appreciation of human rights at a very young age. I'll tell you a little bit about my childhood. I had an amazing childhood, an idyllic childhood in every way you can imagine. But there were a series of things that happened while I was growing up that were so full of confusion and so full of chaos that they threw my idyllic childhood into disarray in many ways. So I want to tell you a little bit about that. When I was 3 years old, my uncle was President John F. Kennedy. Has anyone heard of him? President Kennedy? Yes. Some of the front rows have. Okay, he was the President of the United States, and he was killed by an assassin. And that was it was horrible for our family and horrible for the world. And then when that happened when I was 3, 5 years later, Martin Luther King was killed in April of 1968, and he was a great hero in our country. And then 6 weeks later, my own father, whose name was Bobby Kennedy, was running for president at the time, and he too was killed by an assassin's bullet. And you can imagine the horror that caused for our family and for our country and for many people around the world. And there were a lot of people who tried to comfort us, but when you lose your parent at that young age, it leaves the work of love undone. And it was very, very, very hard. And then when I was in 5th grade, so maybe 11 years old, there was a family that was very close to my family, and they were at our house every weekend. And the girl who was my age told me that her father was beating up her mother. And I just didn't know what to do with that. I didn't know if this was a secret that I shouldn't tell anyone. I didn't know how to comfort and help my friend. I didn't know how to protect the mother who I loved so much. And I didn't know how to think about the father. This father who I loved too and who played with my brothers and sisters and I every single weekend. And it was so confusing. And then when I was in high school, 2 of my best friends were raped on a double date. And one of my very, very, very closest friends died. He was one of the first people in the United States to die of HIV/AIDS. Now, I tell you all of those things not so you feel sorry for me, but to say this: all of us face tragedy. Nobody is immune. And that's part of being human. We all face suffering, and we all have to move through that suffering in one way or the other. And this audience knows that more than any other audience you could talk to. Thank you. Now, when I was in college, I took an internship at Amnesty International. And I had a transformative experience there because somebody handed me a document called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And when I read that document, I realized for the first time that everything that was insane and chaotic and tragic in my life had one thing in common. They were all violations of human rights. And I learned that there were people around the world who were using that document to create change and to assure that these things wouldn't happen to others, and that I could join them and I could create change as well. And that changed my life. And I decided right then and there that I would devote my life to protecting human rights. And that's what I've done for the last 35 or whatever it is, even longer years, long time. But it's not enough, we felt, to do this for ourselves. We wanted to share this with others. So now we have a human rights education program which is taught to about 1 million students worldwide every year. And we tell the stories of human rights defenders and get students involved in human rights protection. So there are people like Elie Wiesel, who survived the Holocaust as a child. And he said, "My dream for the future is that your children won't have my past." And there are people like Archbishop Tutu, who is the great anti-apartheid leader in South Africa. And he said, "We don't have a God who says, ah, gotcha. We have a God who lifts us up and dusts us off and tells us to try it again." And to me, those are the two bookends of human rights. On the one hand, trying to stop the atrocities, and on the other hand, having this faith in humanity that we can call forth our better angels even under the worst of circumstances. Now, in the human rights world, I have seen 3 different kinds of courage, because if you look at people working in human rights, they're facing imprisonment and torture and death for basic rights most of us take for granted. And they're the bravest people on earth. And so there's basically 3 different types. The vast majority of them are people who come from oppressed communities and stand up against the oppressor, stand up with their community against the oppressor. So that would be like Nelson Mandela in South Africa. Okay, are you with me? Okay. The second group are Defenders Without Borders. And those are people who go help out a situation in someplace far away. So that would be an Italian going to work in Rwanda. Okay? The third group you almost never see in the adult world. And those are defenders, that's what I would call moral courage. That's somebody who's willing to stand up to their friends and their family and their colleagues and say, what we are doing is wrong, and we have to stop it. And that takes enormous courage because they could be ostracized for doing that. Now, you almost never see that in the adult world. But if you think about it, that is what the adult world tells middle and high school students they should be doing when they face bullying, right? We say, well, just tell them it's wrong, or tell them you won't laugh at a joke, or tell them you're not going to participate in that kind of behavior. But that's a very, very difficult thing to do. Now, if you walk into almost any middle or high school in Italy and in the United States and in almost any European country, you will see written on the walls, or you will hear in cyberspace the words bitch or fatso or retard or some other kind of hate speech. And students are subjected to that maybe 10, 15, 20 times a day. And every time they see those words, they have to make a decision. And am I going to stand up, or am I going to go along with my friends? And each time they make that decision, it's like they're exercising a muscle. Am I going to exercise my stand-up muscle, or my go-along muscle? And each time they exercise one of those muscles, it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And that becomes the go-to muscle. And that becomes what they do automatically. And that's what's happened in the adult world. We've exercised that one get-along, go-along muscle so many times that it's hard for us to say, wait a second, what we're doing is wrong. That's what we do with the Speak Truth to Power human rights education program, and we do this all over the world. But I want to say something that I learned today. What I learned today walking through San Patrignano is that there's a fourth form of courage. And this was very, very moving to me. And it's not the courage that goes into a battlefield. It's not the courage that is on a soccer field, a football field. It's not the courage to stand up to a government, but it's the courage to go inside yourself. It's the courage to go and find the demons inside and go deep into your heart, into your soul, into your memory, and think about, what did I do? How did I behave? What decision did I make that got me here today? How am I going to change my life going forward? And that's the strongest, most difficult, and most rare form of courage there is. And that's the form of courage that all of you have exercised every day. Because if you didn't exercise it, you would never have come here. And I just want to say, I work, thank you. I work with people every day who risk their lives for their communities. And they are the Martin Luther Kings and Mahatma Gandhis of our day. And none of them are more courageous than the people in this room. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you for all you're doing, for all you're showing to the world. I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank all the people of San Patrignano for your commitment and for your capacity to care and to show love. And I'd like to end with an exercise that we do with our students. Are you ready for that? Will you join me for something? Is that okay? All right. Okay, so we work sometimes in Darfur in Sudan, and Darfur is the part of Sudan that's the size of France. And the government for many, many years went on a massive killing spree, and they specifically targeted women. And the time that women were most targeted was when they were walking very far from home in order to get water. So in Sudan, there's a dry season about 10 months of the year. And so everybody prays for rain. They pray for rain. So today, we're going to do, in solidarity with the women of Sudan, a call for rain. Is that okay? Okay. So we need to start by practicing. Okay? There's a bunch of different parts. So the first part is this. You're very good at that. Okay, the second part, I have to put this mic down. Maybe I'll go over here. Do these work? Can you make this work? Okay, so the second part is this. Can you just do this? Okay, good. Now the next one is this, just a little clap like that. Okay, very good. The next one is this. Okay, and the last one is, okay, you're very good. Now, we're going to divide the room into, let's see, maybe four parts. So this is the first part, there. Got it? Here's the first part. Here's the second part. In the middle. This is the third. Okay. I have to get the mic back. Okay, first, second, third, fourth. Now, we're gonna start over here, and the rain is going to move across the plain over to that side. You have to pay attention to what you're supposed to do, okay? Don't do what the other section is doing, it won't work, okay? Okay, is everybody ready? Okay, everybody stand up. Oh, we have to stand up. Come on, we need you all to stand up. Okay, do you remember the first part?